Mr. Steube.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. President Trump said, "I don't want America to be energy independent. I want America to be energy dominant." To accomplish this, Trump lifted drilling restrictions, sped up fossil fuel production, gave the green light to domestic pipelines, blocked extreme environmental regulations, and reduced reliance on foreign oil. The U.S. was producing more oil than we were consuming and producing more oil than Russia and Arab nations. Once Biden took office, we went from energy independence to energy dependence. Biden reversed almost all of Trump's policies by focusing on climate change, wind and solar power, and electric vehicles. After Biden's action, gasoline prices rose more than $5 a gallon, which was a direct result of his green energy policies. A Goldman Sachs report projects that green subsidies in the Inflation Reduction Act will cost $1.2 trillion, more than 3 times what my Democratic colleagues claimed. The Wall Street Journal stated, "The Inflation Reduction Act may go down as one of the greatest confidence tricks on taxpayers in history," and my colleague, Mr. Estes, put that article into the record. The Congressional Budget Office forecast that the Inflation Reduction Act's energy and climate provisions would cost $391 billion between 2022 and 2031. This appears to be a huge underestimate. By Goldman's estimate, the Inflation Reduction Act tax credits will cost tens to hundreds of billions more than CBO estimated over 10 years. The forecast misses include electric vehicles, green energy manufacturing, renewable electricity production, energy efficiency, hydrogen, biofuels, and carbon capture. Biden's disastrous climate policies and his environmental, social, and governance standards are crippling the United States economy. Mr. Turner, can you elaborate on these statistics and its effect on the U.S. economy?
Congressman, thank you for the question. You absolutely nailed it, especially when it comes to oil and gas production. For years we heard this talking point, 9,000 leases, 9,000 leases. How come they're not using the 9,000 leases? Well, the Willow Project was a wonderful example of that, and I am glad the Biden administration gave approval for this huge oil and gas lease on Alaska's North Slope. I've been to Willow several times. I'll be back in a couple of months. But that was an example of one of the 9,000 leases that still requires government cooperation, and we don't have government cooperation from this administration. For every one Willow, there are hundreds and hundreds of other companies waiting just to produce oil and gas. And instead, the Biden administration makes deals with Venezuela. We make deals with OPEC. The president himself goes to Saudi Arabia to ask for oil. I just want to know why the American oil and gas workers have to suffer while we look to other countries, some of them hostile, for our energy needs.
Thank you for that. I agree with you 100%. In 2018, the USTR, as part of an investigation under Section 301, concluded that China engages in forced technology transfer, theft of U.S. IP and trade secrets, discriminatory and non-market licensing practices, and state-funded strategic acquisitions of U.S. assets. USTR then imposed tariffs on an estimated $370 billion worth of U.S. imports from China. China countered with tariffs on $110 billion worth of U.S. products. Most tariffs remain in effect today. China's imports from 2020 and 2021 fell below its commitment to buy at least $502 billion of U.S. goods and services over 2 years. In 2021, China's global exports grew by 30% over 2020. Its exports to the United States grew by 28% over 2020. China is pressing the USTR to lift U.S. tariffs while sustaining its concerning practices. Mr. Stein, what actions are needed to address China's trade coercion and efforts to sidestep U.S. policies?
I think that's it has to work at multiple levels. Like there's opportunities through the WTA and through retaliatory tariffs to approach these things. There's also legal mechanisms. These Chinese companies invest in the United States, and we don't have to let them do so if they're not competing fairly in their home countries or even in third-party countries.
Many of my Republican colleagues have expressed concern about the irregularities in economic ties, U.S. ties to PRC firms violating human rights, and China's practices that may force or unfairly incentivize the transfer of U.S. technology and data to China. These issues are evolving into broader concerns about U.S. competitiveness and national security. Mr. Horn, can you provide types of Chinese threats and/or national security implications with green credit access?
Congressman, anytime we allow Chinese subsidized or owned entities into the United States, we have to assume that they are not only stealing IP, they're collecting intelligence, and they're finding ways to use every piece of our system against us.
My time's expired. Thank you for the witnesses for being here today.